So what is development? Development is not GDP growth. GDP growth is an instrument, and improving the living conditions is development. In fact, Amartya Sen said capabilities are important. I mean, you can have wealth, but if you don't have health, education, those things, that's not development. And similarly, renowned thinkers and philosophers also mentioned what is development. For example, Aristotle, the famous the philosopher, said that wealth is evidently not the good we are seeking. Basically, for the sake of something else. Something else is the people's, human beings' well-being is the development. Even now, the modern economists started with Adam Smith. They all said that GDP is only an instrument, but well-being is the important for development. The welfare models, as Professor Suri mentioned, that they started with also health, education, social security in other countries. But of course, welfare now has become more like a doles, cash transfers, and those kind of things much more now. So the outline, what I'll do first a few minutes is that what are the development goals? Development goals are growth, inclusion, and sustainability. Those are the three development goals. Then I'll talk about the state finances, the welfare and development. So first on global challenges, which Subramanian Garu also mentioned, there are a lot of uncertainties at the global level. Of course, COVID-19 we had, and also geopolitical, the Ukraine, Russia, and other things, and also high inflation. In recent years, US had never seen 10% inflation. Europe has never seen similarly 10% inflation. And then because of that, they have tightened the monetary policies. Interest rate they have increased. And also there are debt problems for many countries because money doesn't grow on trees. I mean, there is a limited budget, 100 rupees, 100%. Out of that only you have to do it. So that's why debt is because people are spending on some other activities in Africa and other countries. Debt is increasing a lot. And deglobalization, trade protection has increased. Everybody protecting their country. And inequalities have increased as he mentioned, Ramesh Garu mentioned the Piketty's work. We know that on inequalities. And lastly, the climate change actually is also shaping the global dynamics. It is going to be an important one in the next few years. But if you see the economic growth in India, for the last, of course, after COVID, 7% are we're growing, and people are saying we are now fifth largest country, and we're going to have third largest economy soon. But if you see the per capita income, for example, China and India had per capita income similar in 1990, but now China's per capita income is $12,500. India's per capita income is $2,500. So you can see the difference. And India's rank is 138 in per capita income, and China it is 72. So which we were same at 1990. Now you can see the per capita income is only $2,500 for India. So you may say that we are third largest economy, but in per capita terms we are 138. So it's a long way to go on growth, and which is important because your growth is important because without growth you can't have taxes, you can't have revenue, and you can't have the cake will not increase. as a result, so growth is important, but on the other hand, inclusive growth is equally important, because if it is benefited by 1% of the population, you can see in the media 1% of the population capture about 50% of wealth, or 35% of wealth, and 10% capture more than 50%. So that's why it is important to spread the wealth among all the sections of the population. Otherwise, even growth is not sustainable. So that's why inclusive growth, the Piketty's work and others' work show that we have to reduce the inequalities. And also, the inclusive growth, three things I'll mention. One is the agriculture. Second, achieving zero hunger and reducing malnutrition. Third is on employment. Employment is for everyone is an inclusive one. So first on agriculture, we have done green revolution and many revolution, cotton revolution and white revolution, milk and other things. But the green revolution approach is not sustainable, because we have a lot of problems due to this approach. So we need to diversify agriculture to other things, including millets and other things, and also the livestock and the other things. So we have to change in the new circumstances agriculture also, and also nutrition crops are also important, and similarly climate resilient. Because climate change, it will be hot, so we need to have crops. Climate. So that is one. The second one is, if we see the numbers on hunger, the zero hunger, it is quite problematic. First one is, what are the challenges? Even now, FAO data shows that 16% of population in India are undernourished. Undernourished means they are not able to get the enough calories. 16% of the population. And second one is, in spite of a lot of development and nutrition, the malnutrition our children is 35%. 35% of India's children are suffer from malnutrition, including Andhra Pradesh and other places. So you can't have become a Vishwaguru with 35% of our children suffering from malnutrition. This is the one highest probably in the world, the India's numbers. Even Africa has 25% or so the malnutrition. So this is another issue where we have to spend money on this. Third thing is the anemia among women is 57%. So which has increased from 53 last NFHS data. So that is also another one. And the fourth one is, the FAO gives the data. Everybody needs a healthy diet, which includes calories and also micronutrients, proteins and all. So for that, they calculated $3 are needed. So in India, 77% of the population can't afford this healthy diet. So this is another challenge. But on the other hand, obesity is also increasing because of the fast foods and particularly in urban areas, it is much more increasing. So these are the challenges regarding hunger and malnutrition, which one has to address. The third thing is the employment, because these welfare schemes are okay, but employment providing is the important thing for inclusive growth, the quality employment. So one thing, if you see the latest data, during 2000 and 2012, we had a GDP growth of 6%. Employment growth is 1.6%. But between 2012 and 19, same GDP growth, but employment growth is 0.1%. So there is a significant decline in the job growth, which is now one has to address. That's another development challenge. And there, one thing is that three things I'll mention. One is this: there is no structural transformation in India. Very very slow. Agriculture still 48% employees, in agriculture, whereas in other countries it's much less. So manufacturing sector for the last probably 50 years or so, the employment share is only 11%, whereas China and other countries is 30%. So that's where quality of employment is there. Although Raghuram Rajan says services are important, but manufacturing growth is still needed for India for jobs quality. The third thing is that women's employment, because women's employment, which was almost 40% in 2005, it has declined to 22% in 2017. Now it increased 35%, but still it's one of the lowest in the world, women's employment, because in other countries it is 50%, or even Bangladesh 50% or so. So that is one area where one has to, because women are 50% of our population. So if we can't take their participation in the in the employment, then your inclusive growth cannot be happen. The last one in employment is youth unemployment. Uh, the youth unemployment is one of the about 27% of our population are youth. That is 15 to 29 age group, and then the youth unemployment is three times to the adult unemployment. So it's about 10 to 15%. But if you see those who are secondary education and above, unemployment is 18%, and about the graduates and above is about 28%. And Andhra Pradesh is also, as mentioned earlier, about 30% or so. So these are the and 83% of the unemployment is belongs to youth unemployed. So most of the youth are unemployed compared to the adults. So this is one problem one has to tackle, and also there are skills problems. For example, the formal skilling in India is only 4%, whereas UK it's about 50%, South Korea 96% the skilled employment, whereas in India it's 4%. So the formal skills and vocational skills, some things informal, they're about 10% or so. So that's why the employability of the people is less, because the skills are less. So about 51% of the employed are not employable because of lack of skills. So these are the development challenges one has to address. If you want to have the growth, inclusion, and the last one is sustainability, because Dr. M.S. Swaminathan mentioned in 1968 itself that he told farmers, don't be greedy for the short run gain by having more fertilizers, more chemicals, more water. So he said that he coined the word evergreen revolution. So to have more sustainable practices. And of course, the climate change is another one. We have to have the, for example, even natural farming in Andhra Pradesh may help, but you can't substitute chemical overnight like Sri Lanka did. They faced problems by substituting thing. India said that by 2070 we need, we will have net zero emissions, carbon emissions. For that also, to have that, we need state level plans, district level plans to reduce our carbon emissions. For that, we need $10 trillion money. So why I'm telling all these things, because money is limited. So we need to take care of these things also, apart from other things. So these are the development challenges one has to take into account. And then I will come to the second part on this development and welfare. Here I will be discussing more on, for example, in India, in a large country, in India, states play an important role in fiscal policy, because they spend 60% of total expenditure, and then 70% on education and health, and then two-thirds of capital expenditure. And also 79% of government employees are from states. So that's why the state spending and consolidation of state finances are equally important. And state spend, has to spend on health, education, social sector, water, housing, nutrition. Similarly, on economic services, agriculture, rural development, energy, they have to spend. And also committed expenditures like salaries, interest payments, because when the debt increases, as mentioned, 14 lakh crores or something, you have to pay a lot of interest to that. So large part of your budget goes for interest, and then you don't have other things. So, so the fiscal deficit is also an important issue. We have several other states. The fiscal deficit, state like Punjab has very high fiscal deficit, and so there are limitations for spending. Coming to welfare policies, the India has long experience on these social protection programs, because for poverty reduction, India has followed two track. One is growth, second is the poverty alleviation programs. As Ramesh mentioned that, but they have not been that successful. We started with IRDP, the giving buffaloes and thing. A lot of scams were there, and then of course employment schemes are much better. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Schemes and others, and public distributions schemes like PDS, and also nutrition programs and all. In the recent years, PM Garib Kalyan Yojana, it helped during COVID period. I mean, because there were hunger problems and all. But the problem is the magnitude of these welfare schemes increased significantly over time. In fact, all the states started. Of course, this tension was there even earlier. The welfare versus development, when M.G. Ramchandran introduced nutrition schemes, or NTR introduced PDS 2 rupee scheme. They said whether it is sustainable or these schemes. But when NTR we were discussing, NTR introduced, the market price of rice was maybe 3 rupees or something. That time he said 2 rupees. But now market price is 50 rupees or 60 rupees. You are giving you 1 rupee or 2 rupees and also free. So that is the problem. The subsidy then, 2 lakh crores or something like that. And international experience, as Ramesh Gar mentioned, there are several places. Initially, they thought some of these programs, IRDP and all, were not working. So the DBT, direct benefit transfer, started in Brazil, Latin America, where there is a conditional cash transfer. Conditional in the sense, if your child goes to school, then this will be given. And if your child goes to hospital, child or adult goes to visit every month, they have to visit for checkup and other things. Then they give that's why it's called conditional cash transfers. In India, of course, we have unconditional also cash transfers. But these welfare programs have been there in Asia, Africa, and many other countries. But also debt is increasing, as I mentioned, Asia, Latin America, a lot of debt. But East Asian experience is different, because there they spent a lot of money on infrastructure. China, for example, or other South Korea and other countries. And also they started, of course, land reforms and other things also China started. Uh, and also a lot of investment on human development. Because human development is one important area which India is lagging, because the rank of human development index is still 140 or so for India compared to 100 and I mean out of 180 countries. And Andhra Pradesh, as you mentioned, human development is lagging, and even per capita, it is much less than Telangana, their per capita income. Uh, so the East Asia, they spent 40% of on investment, infrastructure, and also about 19% of GDP they spent on capital expenditure, whereas India spends about 3 to 4% on capital expenditure. Even Bangladesh experience, if you say, they give a lot of importance to human development. Human development indicators are much better than India for Bangladesh, particularly women. Women empowerment is much higher for Bangladesh compared to India. Coming back to India on this, the welfare programs development, there were a lot of articles by Dr. Rangarajan, the former governor, and also Dr. Subbarao, the former governor, on that. So Dr. Rangarajan said that good freebies and bad freebies. Good freebies, according to him, is like PDS, nutrition, the employment programs, and also some maybe transfers kind of thing. But bad freebies, he says, free electricity and TV sets and those kind of giveaways. Of course, India has many programs, also successful in also elections and all. For example, recent Madhya Pradesh Ladli Behna scheme. It was very popular. Giving they said that it is a good scheme and all, but one has to see how it is helpful in winning elections, kind of thing. It may not be the main reason. So political parties are using a lot of these welfare schemes for winning elections, but whether they are really doing because of this so-called freebies. Prime Minister himself said that the it is called, he called it Revodi, the freebies by the welfare schemes. So Dr. Subbarao says that we have a budget deficit, which means freebies or some of these schemes are being financed by borrowing. So borrowing means again the debt problem will be there. So they do not contribute to growth. So your repayment will be paid by your future generations, by your children, grandchildren, and others. So you want to sin against your children by spending a lot of these freebies on for